Sandy Springs might be the most unique suburb in Metro Atlanta because it gives you something almost no other suburb can. Real access to Atlanta without fully living in Atlanta. And for the right buyer, that can be a huge win. But convenience comes with trade-offs. So today, we're walking through the real pros and cons of living in Sandy Springs, Georgia, so you can figure out if this is actually the right fit for you. My name's Joel. I'm a local realtor here in Metro Atlanta, and I help people relocate here all the time. Let's get into it. If you're just starting your suburb search, here is the quick version. Sandy Springs feels like the first kind of true suburb of Atlanta. It sits right along the north side of 285 and has a very mixed urban-suburban feel. It gives you that combination that is hard to find in most other suburbs around here. Single-family homes, condos, townhomes, office space, hospitals, MARTA, fast access to Buckhead, Midtown, and Perimeter. So right away, that should tell you something. This is not the suburb you choose because you want to feel far removed from the city. This is a suburb you choose because you want access, convenience, and connectivity, and that matters to you. And that starts with the biggest pro. Sandy Springs has elite city accesses, and it's really the city's superpower. If you want to be close to Atlanta without technically living in Atlanta, this is about as good as it gets. You've got direct access to Buckhead, Midtown, and the Perimeter area. You're sitting right on top of 285 and 400, which means you can move east, west, north, south a lot more easily than you can from, many of the other suburbs. And on top of that, Sandy Springs has real MARTA access, which is one of the biggest differentiators in the entire metro. Because a lot of relocation buyers say they want to be close to Atlanta, but what they really mean is they want easier access to the jobs, the restaurants, the events, the airports, the doctors, and the weekend activities without fully committing to living in the city. And Sandy Springs gives you that better than pretty much anywhere else. Okay, a lot of suburbs are basically bedroom communities, just a place to lay your head, really. But Sandy Springs is not just near jobs, it has jobs. This is one of the stronger professional convenient suburbs in Metro Atlanta. You've got major employers in and around the city like UPS, Newell Brands, Inspire Brands, Mercedes-Benz, plus huge office concentrations and the Perimeter market right next door. That makes Sandy Springs very practical. If you work in corporate, healthcare, finance, tech, or anything tied to a major organization, this is one of the few suburbs where convenience can genuinely shape your daily life in a positive way. And in Metro Atlanta, with commutes being what they can be sometimes, that matters a lot. Because the farther you live from your life, the more your life starts getting organized around highways. This is one of the most practical advantages Sandy Springs has, and it does not get talked about enough, I think, is the ridiculously good healthcare access. I'm at Pill Hill right now, which is Northside Atlanta, Emory St. Joseph's, and Choa Scottish Rite, all right here, clustered together across the street from each other. Literally, right here is Northside Atlanta, and then right across the street, right there, that's Emory St. Joseph's. If you're a medical professional, if you have ongoing healthcare needs, if you have aging parents in the picture, or if you just value being close to these top-tier hospital systems, Sandy Springs becomes very compelling very quickly. Oh, come on through. I'm not feeling it right now. Or maybe I am. This is not always the flashiest category in a suburb video, but in real life, it can be a huge advantage because when you need serious healthcare, you do not care that another suburb had a cuter downtown. You care that what you need is nearby. Now, some people hear all of that and assume Sandy Springs is all business, traffic, and hospital towers. It's not really true. It has way more lifestyle than a lot of people expect. Sandy Springs is not trying to be Roswell, it's not trying to be Woodstock, it's not trying to be maybe the most historic, charming suburb, but it still has a lot more lifestyle than people assume. You've got City Springs, which has become a real community hub with restaurants and events, green space, and the Performing Arts Center. You've got river access and outdoor recreation along the Chattahoochee. You've got parks, trails, and places like Morgan Falls, and a river corridor that makes the city feel a lot more livable than people expect. So yes, Sandy Springs is practical, but it is not just practical. There's enough here that you can actually enjoy your weekends without feeling like you always have to leave your city to go and actually do something. This is a big one. A lot of farther north suburbs are dominated by detached homes and neighborhoods. Sandy Springs just gives you much more housing variety. Condos, townhomes, lock and leave properties, older ranch homes, higher end attached housing, luxury detached homes, a little bit of everything. And that makes Sandy Springs especially interesting for buyers who care more about location than lot size and square footage, because not everybody wants a giant suburban house 40 to 60 minutes away from all the things that they actually care about. Some buyers would rather have less house and better access, and Sandy Springs gives you way more ways to make that trade-off than a lot of the other suburbs do. If you're trying to figure out whether Sandy Springs is actually the right fit for your budget, your lifestyle, and commute, reach out anytime. I help people relocate around Metro Atlanta every day, and I'd be happy to help you narrow it down. Now, let's talk about the trade-offs, because there are definitely some. You do not get Sandy Springs' level of access without paying for it in traffic and congestion, because yes, 285 is right there. Yes, 400 is right there. Yes, Buckhead and Midtown are close, but so is everybody else. This is one of the busiest corridors in the metro, and traffic is simply part of the deal. And right now you've got express lane projects going up on 400 and the top of 285, which is going to add some short-term construction pain into the mix. Now, maybe that helps in the long term, maybe it helps a little, but in the short term, it's definitely part of a very serious reality. So if you are the type of person who gets worn down fast by busy roads, bottlenecks, and a faster moving daily environment, Sandy Springs may start to feel a little exhausting over time. That does not mean it is a bad place to live, it just means the access is the superpower and the congestion is the curse that comes with it. Now let's talk about schools, because this is one of the categories where Sandy Springs, it does fine, but it does need some nuance. The schools are not bad, but if top-tier school reputation is the number one thing driving your move, there are stronger reputations and better ratings farther north. And that is really the key point. Sandy Springs is in Fulton County, so the exact school story depends heavily on where you are in the city and which zones that you land in. So yes, do your normal research, verify all of the things, look into the specific programs that matter to you and your family. But if your goal is to move somewhere primarily because of the school reputation and the ratings, I think you at least owe it to yourself to compare Sandy Springs against some farther north options before you decide. Sandy Springs does not feel like a classic North Metro suburb, and this is more of a fit issue than a flaw, but this is real. Sandy Springs does not have the same cozy, cohesive, charm-heavy feel that some buyers are maybe really looking for. It's a bit more practical, it's more city-adjacent, more movement-oriented, more access-driven. For some people, that is exactly the appeal. For others, it feels a little too busy, a little bit too commercial, a little bit too in-between. That's why Sandy Springs is a very specific suburb. If you want the charm, the slower pace, and the stronger classic suburban identity, places like Roswell or Woodstock or Marietta are going to tend to hit, a lot better in that field. This is probably the biggest money side caution. Homes here get expensive pretty quick. Sandy Springs gives you housing variety, yes, but if what you specifically want is a nice detached home in a strong pocket of the city, the price can rise very quickly. That is the part of why broadened market numbers can be a little misleading here. You may look at the overall picture and think Sandy Springs is not as expensive as expected, but a lot of that flexibility comes from the attached inventory. Median home price in March of 2026, for example, was just $450,000, but for detached homes, it was $1.1 million. Once you start narrowing the search to detached homes in some of the more desirable pockets, especially updated homes, things get expensive in a hurry. So this is not one of those suburbs where you should just look at the headline number and assume that you understand the value. You need to understand what your price point buys you here specifically. So should you move to Sandy Springs? I think Sandy Springs is one of the strongest options in Metro Atlanta for buyers who value the access, the convenience, the healthcare, and the proximity to the city more than they value maybe space, quiet, classic suburban charm. If you want to be close to Atlanta without fully living in Atlanta, this place makes a lot of sense. But if your priorities are top tier school reputation, more elbow room, lower driving stress, a more traditional North Metro suburban feel, maybe less on the price, there are much better options further north. And that is really the point. Sandy Springs is not the best suburb for everybody, but for the right buyer, this is one of the most useful and strategically located suburbs in all of Metro Atlanta. If you're trying to figure out which suburb around Atlanta fits you best, reach out anytime. I help people relocate here every day. I'd be happy to help you narrow it down as well. And if you're still in research mode, just keep watching some more videos. I'll see you in the next one.